Hi traders, and welcome to the Technical Analysis Market Watch on Friday the 30th of May. So I've seen some reasonable action this week on a few of the indices and currencies that we look at, and some of the key levels that we've talked about have been hit again and bounced off. So we'll jump straight into the charts and see if we can identify any trades for today or early into next week. So I'll start out here with the Aussie USD, and we can see we've seen another range-bound week that has tested both boundaries throughout the week. You can see on Monday here we had an attempted move higher. We went all the way up to 65.30 actually before it actually reversed, but we see a big shooting star at the level of very heavy resistance around that 65 cent mark. So no real surprises there. But it did pull back quite nicely all the way back down to around that sort of 64 cent mark. That 100-point range has been very, very good over the last little bit, as you can see. And you can get some pretty good trading opportunities there as well. The 20 moving average is doing its job, holding everything up at the bottom of this range. So it's a very, very heavy protected range now at 64 cents. But we did see a potential breakout finally. So it'll be interesting to see when we do eventually break out how far it will go. If you want to see how you would have traded that, you've really got to go to the smaller time frames, and there are opportunities right throughout the week. I mean, you could go to a 1 hour or a 15-minute, but you can see even here on the 1 hour, we've got a series of lower highs and lower lows, the things that we talk about every single week, and all of those were good opportunities to get in. So there's really very, very good opportunities over that last week to actually get in from the peaks all the way down to the lows. And even if you go to as small as a 15-minute chart, which is the scalping time frame, if you have a look at that, it's pretty much the same. It was trending on the way up, the way we like it to do, and of course on the way down as well. So a series of lower highs and lower lows, pullbacks to the moving average all the way down. So pretty good trading on the Aussie USD. And it did maintain its range. So look, we're not going to do anything fancy on it until we actually break out of either a daily close below 64 or a daily close above 65. Until then, we're going to stick within this range and just trade the smaller time frame, higher high and higher lows, or lower high and lower lows, and just really stick with that. It's proven to be a good strategy for the last little bit, and it is playing the game quite well in that regard. All right, over to the US dollar CAD. And it's seen a little bit of action this week. Like we did see a bit of a sell-off. As you can see from last Friday, it sold off quite significantly, and then it's pulled back all the way up to the 20 moving average. Again, this is one of the ones that I was talking about in the intro, bouncing between key levels. You can see that we had basically a morning star actually in the pattern on the daily here, very heavy hammer candle rejection. I mean, when I say heavy, reasonable enough given that where we were, but it did react quite violently off that, and it put itself back up above that very important 137.80 level, which has been very, very strong support, and straight up to that 138.60, which is the 20 moving average, and also the resistance cap that we can see through this little consolidated range. So look, one of those ones that's really playing the boundary game as well. You can see that it's hovering inside these boundaries. Again, if you go to a 1 hour chart, you'll see the action for the week. And every one of them was a great opportunity to go up. Once you had that bounce up, you can see the higher lows all the way up through to hit the target. So this was really easy trading actually throughout this week. And I think a lot of the indices and currencies were very similar in that there was very good scalping opportunities just following the rules in between the boundaries that we've been talking about. So hopefully you're able to get hold of some of those on the CAD because they were quite solid. All right, US dollar yen. And look, obviously, we've seen a big bounce up from the early week lows. We were down here at around that sort of 142-ish area early in the week, and it did push up quite significantly. And it does, it moves many hundred pips when it does move the yen, as we know. So no real surprise to see that. 146.20 was basically the high of that period. That's a long way. I mean, you're talking about nearly 400 pips. So it's a decent move from 142 to 146, but it's pulled back quite significantly now, back underneath the 20 moving average. It has seen quite a significant fall in that time. So it's difficult to actually pinpoint a direction for this now because it seems to be a little bit confused. It was printing higher and higher lows, and it had a very, very big sell-off for a few weeks to get to a pretty low level. And its first attempt up, and it's failed quite significantly because you're talking about a 200 pip odd candle there in today's range alone. If you break that down to a smaller time frame, it's a lot of action. You can see that we had a big rise up, and obviously a pretty solid rise, drop all the way down again. So effectively completely reversed its day's trading all the way from this base at around that 144. So yeah, very interesting day for it, but difficult to predict a direction. All we know is that there is support at 144, and if it was going to bounce, the first target would be around that 146 area, which was the previous touch of that high. So if we were going along, we'd be looking for higher high, higher low sequences on a 15-minute. And if we get that, we'd be looking at trying to retrace the previous resistance. If we get a daily close below 144 and we're trading below this, say on Monday morning for the week, we would be looking at shorting it back down to around the 142 would make the most amount of sense. But of course, we need lower high and lower low sequences to make that happen. So that's what we're looking for on the yen. All right, dollar index. This has been a strange sort of week. Obviously we down around that sort of the last line of defense that we've been talking about, 98.80. Very early in the week, and then it kicked up quite significantly all the way to 150, which we know is very heavy resistance. You can see right through here, we've got very, very heavy resistance at that point because it was support here. So it is a role reversal zone, and it's been an important marker for quite some time now. But it did sell off very, very heavily today. It's been a very, very big sell off, as you can see, in terms of movement. We'll see it more clearly on the euro as its inverse, of course. But yeah, it's still hanging on for dear life. I mean, it feels like we're a broken record on this one. It's hanging on for dear life in between this 98.80 and 150 zone. It's sticking true so far. So really not much has changed in the sense of what it's actually done. We need to get it above that 150 with a daily close to be a little bit more confident in the long. Otherwise, we're going to start worrying. But again, the 98.80 is still holding up okay so far. And we have got massive MACD divergence happening on this as well. So the euro will probably tell a better story. If you see here, we've had a very, very big kick up off this support. You can see we've got resistance levels at these two peaks, which is going to provide a support level around that sort of 112 area, which is a really, really good bounce zone. And it did that in spades. If you go to a smaller time frame, you'll see that play out obviously throughout the day. But you can see once we had the high, 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 low sequence and the 20 moving average, 50 moving average cross, came back and did it again for us there, and bang, off it went. So really, really good trading on the euro from a daily scalping standpoint. So hopefully you're able to get hold of some of that. Look, again, it finds itself at that 114. It's a difficult area for it. It's a big move. 200 points is a decent move in a day on the euro. There's no question about that. So we need to be a little bit mindful that it is a very, very big candle. We'll let it play out the way it wants to, but we know resistance at 114 is right in front of us. So we've got to be mindful of that. And if we are going long, but it did pull back all the way, past the 20 moving average again. So while the dollar index is at very strong support, I don't probably expect that this is going to be shooting for the stars anytime soon. Probably 114 is going to cap it out a little bit, but if we see a daily close above 114, which means obviously a really heavy short on the dollar index, then we're going to start looking at moves back up to 115. But that's not my preferred right now because I think that there is still very heavy resistance and quite a bit to play out. So if I was scalping this, I'd be looking at staying within this range of the dollar index's range as well, which is around 114 and 112. I'd be trading the bounces and the moving average and also the momentum shifts on the smaller time frames in the direction using the 114 and the 112 as the boundary until we get a close outside of those levels. And finally, we'll have a look at the S&P 500. Look, very, very strange day. Tested 6,000 throughout the day, but it's pulled back quite significantly, 100 points all the way to 5,900. It's one of those ones where, there is a little bit of news involved and a little bit of tit for tat from a political standpoint. Difficult to read from a technical standpoint when you're looking and using those sorts of guides as the market moving forward. So in my mind, I think we've got a bit of a juncture here where we don't really know what it's going to do. I think it could be back at 58.50 just as easily as it could be at 6,000, to be honest. So I would be probably leaving this one alone. If you're going to trade it, I'd only be looking at very small scalping opportunities up to 6,000 on the high if we see a series of higher high and higher lows on a smaller time frame, or aim for the 57.50, which is around this level here. You can see we've got pretty strong support at this level because there was resistance there at around that sort of 57.50 level. That would be my target for the way down, but just be mindful of the 20 moving average as well, because that may cause it a bit of grief. But I'd be keeping the trades relatively tight on the S&P at the moment, because I think it's still quite volatile and at a pretty key area. So yeah, just keep an eye on that one. So look, thank you so much for joining me this week. Hopefully you were able to get hold of some of those good opportunities that we saw on those smaller time frames on the currencies that we see every day. Have a fantastic weekend. I look forward to seeing you all next week.